Talofa lava, malo lelei, taloha ni, namaste, whakalofa lahi atu. Nisa bula, hello Ogeta. I'm your uso and host Danté Fyfe, and on this episode of KOKO Chats, we have Fui Maono Fionna Siose-Chapman, a long-standing Pacific community leader and worker. She recently came off of chairing the Canterbury basketball and is a very rare Pacific candidate running for Christchurch City Council in the Burwood ward. She also chairs Moana Community Trust, which helps to keep the cameras rolling and hot koko on the table. Let's get into it. Talofa lava, Fi. Thanks a lot for coming on to KOKO Chats. Really appreciate your time. I know you in a professional capacity and also a personal capacity. But for our watchers and listeners out there, they'll want to know more about you. And I know you're doing a lot in the community space right now, so like I said, I appreciate your time, especially on the campaign trail. So yeah, I mean, please share with our audience a bit about yourself.
Oh, nice. Well, malo lavale soifo, mawamanalangi mama. As you've heard, I'm Fui Maono Fionna Chapman, Siose-Chapman, and born and bred Cantabrian, first generation. My parents hail from the beautiful island of Samoa. My dad, his name is Taufua Yuma Siose, and he comes from Lalomano Aleipata. Best place in Samoa with the nicest beach, and I'm sure most people will tell you that.
I can attest to that personally. Yes.
Yeah, and my mum, she's a ono. Her dad is a ono lama turiato, and her mum is pongai a ono as well, and they hail from the beautiful greenery of Fasito Ulta, which is near the airport in the main island of Samoa. Yeah.
Awesome.
I've, like I said, born and bred in Canterbury. I have three daughters. One is 30, and she's married to a French man, and one daughter. And the next one is 28, and her partner is Tangata Whenua from Wanganui, and they have a daughter. And my youngest one is 22, and she has the oldest moko, and he's almost 4, and she's together with a Russian. So our family is like United Nations. And so they're my flatmates. I love it, and we live in an intergenerational household. So my dad is with us, my youngest daughter and her partner and myself, and we lost my mum, bless her, in May this year, which has been really hard, and just struggling and getting used to that, not having her around. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I mean, amazing. I think it's such a common story for our Pacific people, the intergenerational households, eh? Did you grow up like that with your parents? They came over from Samoa, right? Yeah,
so they actually met here in New Zealand. So they when the big migration from the islands, Dad came over in the late 1960s, and Mum sort of came early 70s, or very early 70s, and so they met. The first Pacific church was the St. Paul's Trinity Pacific Island Church in Worcester Street. So they met there. And a lot of people who migrated from the islands and landed in Christchurch ended up working at a place called Lane Walker Rudkin. And so I think they might have locked eyes then. And, the rest is history.
And did you grow up on the eastern side of Christchurch, western side of Christchurch? It would have been quite a Palangi world back then, eh?
Yeah, well, when Mum came, she had her two older sisters were already living here, so they brought her over, and they worked at Lane Walker Rudkin, whereas Dad stayed with some of his sister was here, and some great aunt and uncles that he ended up living with for a wee bit. And so when they eventually got together, and I'm going to be cutting out a few years here, they bought their first home in Bromley once I came along. Yeah.
Because you're the eldest?
I am the eldest of three, yeah.
They bought their first home in Bromley. That's amazing. Firstly, did you know much about their journey getting into their first home?
I do know, I'm piecing bits and pieces together, but so when I came along, Mum didn't work. She stopped work, but Dad took on 3 jobs. So he did, and this is minus the years he spent at the freezing works down south too, before him and Mum, really committed to each other. But Dad was a bus driver. He also worked as a tailor, doing the pressing of garments at the, what do you call them?
Well, I was going to say
Dry cleaning. Dry cleaning. Tailor's dry cleaning, that's what it was. And he's always just worked hard. So he's, he had those 3 jobs to help make ends meet. And when him and Mum were living together, one of the landlords, while he was doing those jobs, their windows kept getting smashed at their house that they were renting. And so when he asked the landlord to get them fixed, he wouldn't get them fixed. Like, he'd take his time getting them fixed. And so he was getting a bit frustrated because he didn't have time to do it himself because he was working these 3 jobs across the shifts. So because it was cold and they had a baby in the house, Dad was like fed up one day. So he decided he'd stroll on into iwi transition, which was the old Māori development Ministry of Māori Development back in the day, and they must have had a housing scheme of some sort.
Wow.
And so he goes, I'm sick and tired of renting, I need a house. And they happened to have I guess it was equivalent to a new subdivision back then. And so were able to be helped into their first home. And I think they purchased their first home on Hay Street for about $15,000.
Different times, eh?
Yeah.
To be fair, they were probably only earning like, what, $5,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Probably less than that a year. Yeah. And, that time, when was that actually?
70, I'm a 72 baby, my sister is 76. And so about 1981, I reckon, or 1980.
Yeah.
When that housing scheme was in, I guess, yeah.
Hay Street, so that was a new subdivision around Hay
was.
Street.
Because there were actually a lot of other Pacific families who must have been on the same housing scheme, I'm guessing, and we all grew up together, which is amazing.
Were there Māori families there as well?
Yeah, our neighbours were Māori.
Yeah.
We had really good relationships with all the neighbourhood families, the ones that were raised in that Bromley area.
Interesting that there was a Māori, you said it was a Māori ministry of that time that were helping
They were called
Pacific.
iwi transition, so they must have been,
But to help Pacific, there's no men, well, they didn't have to.
No.
So, that's interesting. I'll have to dig a bit deeper on that, I reckon.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
It was lucky for us.
Yeah, well, for sure, because obviously that set your parents up. And then have you found that your parents owning their own home has made a difference for you and your siblings
100%.
going into owning your own homes?
100%, because as the years went on, one of the other families that were in Bromley, she worked at a bank, so she was able to encourage Mum and Dad to be able to use the equity on their homes to purchase the next 2 houses.
Wow.
Which my sister and myself, we benefited from, which was really lucky until we could afford to take over and purchase our houses outright at that stage.
Yeah. And then you'll be able to do the same for your children, for your girls, eh?
Well, I didn't have to. My girls, My girls are amazing because I guess I had that inside knowledge because when my marriage broke up, I was on my own. So I knew I had to work really hard to keep us in our house. So my girls knew there was no extra money. And if they actually ever wanted anything themselves, they had to go out and work. But then they also understood the value of not getting themselves into debt and working hard to get where they are. So the two older ones have purchased their own homes. The oldest one maybe over a year ago, and the second one just recently.
Amazing. Yeah. So they were just more encouraged by the way you managed your money to manage money well themselves.
I'm not sure what it was.
Piece of humble pie.
I'm not sure what it was.
Piece of humble pie. But, coming back to your upbringing, your parents bought their first home, I think you said you would have been around 9 years old. Was money talked about in your household by your parents? Did they teach you guys anything to do with, buying groceries? Hey, we've got to pay the bills here and there.
No.
Yeah.
No. Well, there were never any conversations about money. I guess we didn't understand money like our Palangi friends did. So there was never... I also think my parents were a little bit different in terms of our traditional parents, because they never expected us to contribute to, whātawalavis in our community when there were things on. We knew that they were always contributing money back home and to anything that was happening in church. But they never expected us to until we fully understood the meaning behind giving.
And then you chose to do it yourselves.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
So they always made it your choice rather than making it feel like a cultural obligation.
Yeah, that was never discussed. I don't know why it was never discussed. I almost feel like they really protected us from that side of it until we fully understood. And even though I knew, as we got older, Mum she went into part-time work and Dad still continued to work. I didn't realise we didn't have money. So I feel like we were always provided for, but not realising we actually didn't have money.
So they were protecting you in so many ways.
Yeah. And so I feel like we never went without, even though, and again, knowing my friends in our community, Dad was always an outdoorsy man. So, our holidays consisted of going camping with the white tent and the green top. So,
yes.
and with family, and we didn't know any different. And so I'd like to think that that's kind of how my girls thought too, because, as a single parent, you just made do with what you had. And then you become quite resourceful in terms of just making things happen, even though you've only got $20 in the bank to last you a week.
I hear you. You're talking about your parents protecting you guys from whaelavilavis and a lot of those cultural obligations. Do you feel like, when you said that they were probably paying it themselves, do you think that was like, how, for example, there'll be a funeral and, families are being asked to put together, say, $5,000, $10,000. Do you think your parents have just been sort of eating that themselves rather than saying, hey, look, fee, can you put in 1,000? Do you think that they just didn't put as much in? They just put a little bit less in because that's what they could afford? Or do you think they still got potentially, not caught up, but they were still giving those high amounts and just not really pushing it on you guys at all? But I do know there are some of our Pacific people that are, sometimes described as tighter-fisted.
but that's just because they're actually giving what they genuinely can afford, not what is expected of them.
Yeah, good question. Because they protected us a lot from that, I feel like that they gave what was expected of them. But I never saw anything like bank loans or things like that. I still feel like they lived within their means, but they pulled together with the wider extended family to get money to give, not to break the bank. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know whether that was because Mum was always a good saver. Dad was a good spender. But he also worked hard, so whether that meant he might have had, I mean, you could afford to live back then, even though times were tough. The ratio to what you pay in mortgage to what you were earning was probably a lot better than it is today. But there always just seemed to be enough to cover that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And coming to your journey into your first home, what did that look like? You know, I know there's this whole thing around, you know, sort of my generation and younger really struggling to find pathways into home ownership. Did you find it difficult when you bought your first home? And was that
Yes.
but was that typical for your generation, for a lot of your friends and family at that time to be getting into their first homes as well?
Yeah, I guess it was tough because I was on a single income. But again, I feel like I've had a privileged upbringing because I have my parents that could help me with the equity from their home to get into my own home. And I never thought as a single parent I would get an approval from the bank to be able to take over, or get a mortgage in the first place. So the timing was right. So I was very lucky to get into my first home, which was around the corner from Mum and Dad's.
Never far from the nest.
Yeah, but my dad did that for my sister as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, around the corner. Yeah.
Did you, when was this?
2007, I think, around that time.
And when you say, I mean, I know you were on one income at that point and getting into your first home. I'm always quite interested in that multiplier of income to house price. And your case will be very unique. It probably wasn't the norm for a lot of people to buy a home by themselves, especially single parents with, you know, multiple children. Very difficult. The banks put their own calculation on the cost of our children, despite what we actually might spend. But do you remember that multiplier, like how much you bought that house for as a multiplier of your total income? You don't have to give specifics of your actual like yearly income and the actual house price, but do you remember that multiplier? Was it like 4 times your income, 5 times your income, 3 times your income?
I can't remember because, you know, even though I say I was a single parent, I was still getting parent income from the girl's dad, which helped. But also, I wasn't able to get a mortgage outright as such, so I had to go to a higher lender. It wasn't your conventional
bank.
For I think it was for a period of 6 months, so I could pretty much prove that I could manage paying the mortgage repayments. But I can't remember the ratio. But I remember, you know, once the insurances and the rates and all that were coming out, there wasn't much left in the coffers to eat.
Yes. And, but you had your foot on the ladder.
Yeah. And that was the bonus. And I don't know what it is about the universe, but it always seems to put the right people around me at the times we needed. So in actual fact, Taveri was my mortgage broker right at that very beginning, which was awesome because I wanted to support Pacific as well.
Yes.
And so That was good. And it's 2007 was a long time ago.
He's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Probably does he's young at heart, as he'd probably describe himself, but he has been around a while.
Yeah.
As I described in a previous episode of KOKO Chats when I interviewed Taveri, he was my mortgage mentor.
Yeah,
and
nice.
that was 8 years ago, and he helped you into your first home almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's been around for a while.
I'm like doing the math.
yeah. I think it's amazing that you've mentioned equity, because a lot of our people don't realise that that is an option for them to utilise, is equity. I'm having more and more conversations with our current Pacific homeowners about how they set themselves up to buy an investment property. Now, there's a few different arguments around, spreading, diversifying your investments across different class assets. But yeah, I think for our people, they see the benefit in owning property, having a piece of land to call their own. But we're not just motivated by profit or return. We're actually motivated to buy an investment property in the meantime while our kids are growing up, and then eventually that house will go to them.
Exactly what Mum and Dad did.
Yeah. Oh, so your parents bought a house. Well, no, I think, what these guys are talking about, so it's mainly people around my generation, mid to late 30s, where they currently own a home. They might have owned it for the last 5 years, to maybe 10 years at a push, and their kids are like 5 years old, but they're still looking to buy an investment property so that when their kid turns 18, they can flat in that house. Did your parents buy those properties before, or a property before you guys were looking at your first home, or they bought it?
No, they bought it with us in mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think it's just great that you mentioned that, because a lot of our people just don't know that that's an option. And a lot of the older generation, your parents, my grandparents, even my parents, there's generations have been able to buy property when it was like 3 times their income. And yeah, the interest rates might have been like 15-20% is what my grandmother describes it as, but it was still like 2.5 to 3.5 times their income. So very different times. And when you're looking at today, where it's like 6 times your income, maybe even in Okilani, Tāmaki Makaurau, it might be 8 times your income, 10 times your income. Using the ability to use your grandparents' parents' equity in their properties to buy that first home and get on the ladder. I just feel like a lot of our people just don't know that that is an option.
Well, a lot of our people are just trying to put food on the table too.
Yeah, 100%, especially right now.
Yeah.
Cost of living, power prices just going through the roof. It's lucky we're heading into summer.
Yeah. I do like the idea of our Pacific families, because a lot of us live intergenerationally.
Yes.
So why can't we build homes that are going to cater for our intergenerational families?
I feel like that opportunity as well is missed, because we can argue. So say your example, you've got yourself, your dad who's retired, you're working, and then your daughters are working. And whoever's living with you right now, maybe it's just one daughter, her partner and child. For them, if you didn't own your own home, you could argue your daughter and her partner as boarders, your dad as a boarder. That's income right there. That really strengthens an application just through that intergenerational boarding arrangement.
Well, that's how we did it. So, well, actually, when we made the decision to move in together, because Mum and Dad weren't getting any younger, so they sold their house, and then I sold my house, and then we moved in together to a slightly bigger one. And it took us a long time to find a house that was suitable to cater to the different generations. And I think that's really crucial when it comes to building houses these days for intergenerational living. And then, you know, it hasn't come without its tensions.
Yeah.
But we love it because, you know, since Mum passed, I couldn't imagine having Dad living by himself in the house, or, you know, it could have been the other way around. So, you know, it's in our nature to care for our parents, or, you know, the other way around. And having, you know, Dad having his great-grandson living with us, it just brings a different energy into the home. And
really drives purpose. I think a lot of, I think it's been said that a lot of mainly men, they struggle in the later years to find purpose. They work for so long, just like women, but they work for so long, and they don't necessarily have a lot of projects in those later years they can sink their teeth into. And having grandchildren there every day, great-grandchildren there every day, can just relight fires, relight purpose and passion for living.
what's a protective
For being
factor?
around.
Yeah. Really is.
Yeah. I think especially for your father, who has spent so many decades protecting.
Yeah.
Just protecting.
I never thought about it that way, but yeah, absolutely.
It's been an amazing journey for you, Fee, and your family in terms of home ownership. But, you know, those other things a lot of our people will struggle with is budgeting. Well, even just, you know, call it budgeting's you know, it sounds so scary and maybe even formal, but just managing our money. Is that something that you've been able to, you've had to, because you've been the parent, but has there been lessons that you've learned, especially as a solo parent or single parent, that you've been able to pass on to your daughters, and that you feel like there's specific examples where that lesson's passed on, that's been able to affect their ability to buy their first home, thrive with KiwiSaver savings, all that sort of thing?
I forgot to actually mention that was how I got onto the ladder, was my KiwiSaver. So I was actually not touching it, and then even though in the financial world there's language in there that I don't understand, I knew that A, I wasn't going to get a credit card, and B, I wasn't going to get credit. And the reason I learnt that, and I think of a lesson that Dad actually taught me, was when I was younger I discovered DTR, where you could hire, purchase stuff.
Yes.
And I remember getting a little 14-inch television with a remote for my room through that type of hire purchase. And Dad hit the roof when he found out, and he goes, "You know, we could have gone to a garage sale to get a TV for you, but no, you want to speak." And then even though
Because it was brand new.
it was attractive though, because it was $3 a week or $3, you know, to purchase that. I've, you know, learnt my lesson from that. And also I remember having a credit card which had like $1,000, you know, limit on it, and I was like, oh wow, this is money, easy money. I can pay back, you know. It's really attractive when they say you can pay it back in small increments. But once I got rid of those things, well, understanding that, I've always just said to my kids, if you want something, you have to save for it. Do not get a credit card, do not get yourself in debt. And I guess they've kind of lived by that mantra, even though we don't fully understand the terms and the language of financial literacy, which is why I've joined. Because I want to see our people live within their means and understand why we don't get into, you know, debt and that kind of stuff.
I guess on the ground though, and it's something I've just been thinking about recently, is, you know, it's easy for us to say as, you know, people that like to talk about money, for us to say, don't get into debt, don't use a credit card, don't get a short-term loan or a higher, you know, any of those sorts of loans. But then what if the car breaks down?
I know.
What if the tyre, what if I go to get a Warren Fitness, and I've got to replace 4 tyres? That's when a lot of our people are getting stuck and having to use credit cards, having to use loans. And, you know, if we take it a step back even further, is it as easy to say, save $100 a week when you're already living
On the-
dollar to dollar?
Yeah.
yeah, paycheck to paycheck. It's easy, and I saw this example on an Instagram reel of this guy saying about how there's just this huge imbalance between the haves and the have-nots, purely because you've got to have some money to start with. And so if you're already a medium to high income earner and you've got savings that you can then use for those emergencies, you're already better off than at least 50% of the population. And that's why our people at that bottom end are really struggling, because they don't have that $1,000 just sitting there ready for the, it's just that starting point. How did you manage that as a single parent? Three girls.
I still remember those times. I'm lucky to be just a little bit out of that, but the days of what is savings? What is savings? I still remember a time where I went to the supermarket and I knew I only had like $2 in my bank account. Do I get the $1 loaf of bread or the 80-cent loaf of bread? And I still remember, so I don't forget those times. And I can't even remember how I might have borrowed from my parents to pay for the tyres, or that week we just didn't eat as much, or we'd go to my parents' place to eat. And then my girls always had part-time jobs, so if they ever needed anything, but I don't know, I just feel like we were always provided for. So if I had 2 tyres to replace, perhaps I'd find a tyre place where I could pay off my tyres.
Yep.
So it was just being resourceful, asking around who could take, who could do the service and be able to pay it off. And I remember some of those people that I was able to just pay off my accounts.
And that, I think, is a really good trick, because if you're working with a mechanic or a tyre shop that allows you to pay it off, you're talking about paying it off at 0% interest. Whereas if you're feeling like, and this is where I think, exactly, is that I feel like a lot of our Pacific people, we get caught up in feeling that obligation, especially with not as a understanding mechanic, or not as understanding of a tyre shop, that they're forcing you to pay the $1,000 straight up. Whereas, as you said, hunt around, find people, businesses that are willing to let you pay it off with that understanding, because it's so much better than paying 13, 15, 20% interest on a loan or a credit card. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great tip.
Yeah.
In terms of your work life, I'd love to talk about your work life, because as you said, you're a single mum and with 3 girls. How did you manage work? How did you manage mahi while having 3 girls, paying off a mortgage, paying for the car, power, food?
School bills.
Yeah. Tell me about your work life and your journey with Ngaluenga.
Yeah, it was tough. But I guess, again, I always felt blessed, or always been in the right place at the right time. So for starters, I don't like the term single mum or solo mum, because I never was. I've always had family, friends, my parents to help out. My sister's children were the same age and they all went to the same school, and that was the benefit of all living in the same area, is that somebody was always there to pick up children. My parents were always there to look after the children after school, so they ran their own after school program before it was actually a thing. And then my work was, I was working in the medical laboratory field at that time, and so I was around people who had children of the same age, who some of them experienced the same thing, so I was getting lots of support and encouragement there. And because I was only working part-time to start with, and then when my marriage fell apart, I was offered full-time hours. And I remember talking to my boss at the time, and he was like, "You're not going on a benefit. I've got full-time hours for you. You can do this." So then that was just, my career in microbiology. I thought I was going to be there forever, especially with the people that I had. They were all still lifelong friends. And when the community contract for laboratory testing came up after the earthquake, rumour had it that Medlab were going to win the contract, and so after post-earthquake, when all the buildings were damaged, Medlab had moved into the hospital laboratory.
Wow.
And so it was like, oh, Medlab's going to win the contract because they're already in there, and I'm like, I need a job, I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got mouths to feed. And a friend of mine who was looking for earthquake support coordinators at Pacific Trust said, "Faye, come and work for us, I need you in this space." I left. After 12 years at the lab, I went, and that was my first stint of working in the community, and Pacific Trust was my go-to in the earthquake space. Got my career running there.
Wow. How did you find that transition from, the private sector essentially into the charity, not-for-profit sector?
Yeah, it was a big eye-opener, because I'd gone from this highly regulated space, and everything had to be done above board, to community where no 2 days are the same. You're dealing with people who are just all over the place post-earthquake. So it was having to manage and be responsive and understand, put yourself into their shoes. It was very different. And then working with our own people, so learning to translate language that isn't necessarily easy for our people to understand, and moving into a system that they have to navigate, like your insurance companies, EQC. It was tough. And then throw in the emotions. And
yes, and it was also raw back then as well.
Yeah.
Did you find that, was it a pay, was there a big pay difference there between private sector and not-for-profit?
Not really. I guess because there was a lot of funding that was poured into that earthquake support coordination service, that actually pay wasn't too bad. It wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
And I've never been attracted to a job because of the pay. So I've never been driven by money. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess though you still had a mortgage and mouths to feed. So I know what you're saying, but obviously you would have set yourself a bare minimum.
I did. Well, you have to.
Yes.
To survive.
Yes, exactly.
So it went from $20 a week to $40 a week. No, it's good.
Yeah. And after Pacific Trust Canterbury, did you just stay in the not-for-profit charity space?
I did.
Yeah.
So I was actually promoted because the Earthquake Support Coordination Service was a collaboration between government agencies and all the not-for-profits to cater to the whole of Canterbury, Christchurch, that were affected by the earthquakes. So then I've gone from this person on the front line to now offered the position of a senior prac role, which was being umbrellaed by St John of God Waipuna. And so that journey went from Pacific Trust to Waipuna in the same department or area, but in a senior prac role, providing supervision for those who are delivering frontline. So still lots of learning along the way.
Yeah. Obviously, with the senior came just from $40 to $60.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
So it's still climbing, in work,
Yeah.
but still gaining lots of experience and knowledge and, understanding, putting boundaries in for myself, I guess, because they're specific. You want to give all of yourself, and,
Yes.
I had some really amazing, from the lab to Pacific Trust to Waipuna, lots of amazing mentors along the way, influential people.
I know that, I mean, it's just purely because I know this about you, but staying in the community sector, I think this might be a good segue, but staying in that community sector for a few years now, what's led you into wanting to get involved in local body politics? There's not, I'd like to think that I know quite a few Pacific people here in Ōtautahi, Christchurch, but I can't say I know any more than a couple that have wanted to get involved in local body politics, especially now where I feel like things are so conflicted and everybody's fairly polarized on so many different issues, and there's so much passion, and there's a lot of raw emotion floating around. We've got our own issues here in Christchurch that are quite uniquely Christchurch based, as opposed to Okilani or Wellington. What on earth would want to get you so amped and so passionate about getting involved and campaigning?
Well, I've never been an aspiring politician, but in my journey in working for the not-for-profits, I've seen and been influenced by some amazing leaders. And so my role now, I work for the Christchurch Methodist Mission, and that role is working in the community. That's my paid role. My whole life I've always volunteered for sports, and my coaching and sporting journey, well, I've always played sports, that's always been part and parcel, but as a single parent, my children played sports as well, and I couldn't always afford to go watch them play at all the different tournaments that they went, so I volunteered to coach or manage. And when you volunteer to coach and manage, your fare, your accommodation's paid for.
Yes.
So that was one way of getting around not having that spare money but wanting to go to tournaments, so I'd manage your coach. So,
it's smart.
well, it's what I had to do
Yes.
to be able to go and watch or get time off work to go do that. So there was, there was that. Sorry, what was the question again?
The question, as you've moved, from this community experience
Into politics.
into local body politics. So,
Yeah.
this time probably more than, I'm not experienced enough to be able to speak to the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, but to me it just feels like today politics, whether they be local or national, are so contentious and so raw.
Yeah.
So what would...
Why?
Yeah, why?
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 So because I'm in the community anyway, so my role with the Christchurch Methodist Mission is finding gaps and working with what's missing in communities and amplifying them, or just, working. So that, with the Methodist Mission, we run the Blanket Bank. The Blanket Bank is about giving and receiving of blankets to people that need it, need to stay warm in their homes. And then...
Oh, so much more than that.
Yeah, it is
I've
definitely
been in
more
that blanket bank, and there's shoes, there's curtains, there's...
But that falls in with some of the projects that we do. And then we do Pacifica Mamas Group. So we plugged a gap there because there was no other people running a mamas group where we could get, for our first time, well, started off as our first time mamas, how to make a baby bed, where to get information from, you know, is this normal to be receiving this kind of service at the hospital from a midwife, or, you know, just, it was information sharing. It was ticking off all of the things like in the whanawhale model where, you know, we're preventing isolation, we're getting our physical needs met, we're sticking to our identity and our culture, and it was not... and then it morphed into, it wasn't just Pacific mums, it was non-Pacific mums of Pacific babies.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and then it wasn't just mums in the end, it was, you know, other caregivers. We had, you know, a couple of dads come along to group, or some, you know, grandparents. And so it was just a really nice, nurturing space that met a need in our community. So that's the Pasifika Mamas. Then community space, we advocate for a lot of things. So we, you know, we see a lot of homelessness in New Brighton, and so our team's based on the east, and so we're advocating for some of those homeless people. We're connecting them to services that perhaps they didn't know existed, you know, identifying, you know, just getting them to trust us and getting to know us to be able to help back for them or find out what their stories are, because not all of them necessarily want a home or are ready for a home, and because of the different layers of homelessness that are out there. And then we also run several community groups in the New Brighton that covers the areas where we have different organisations come, like MSD, Kāinga Ora, and then all the not-for-profits in and around that area. And we just pull our resources together and brain thinking and try and come up with solutions and save the world conversations.
Do you find like, because you're running for council and Burwood Ward, so it's a community board. Yes,
yeah.
For Burwood.
Yeah.
Are you finding, you're just talking about issues and challenges and beauty and opportunities within smaller communities within our wider city? Are you finding, like, even though you're going for council and the community board, that maybe you're better suited to one or the other? Are you feeling like maybe I want to get on the council to take those really ground level issues right up to the council table and make sure that those people right at the ground level have a voice at the table? Is that what you're thinking? Or do you think you're going to have actually much better effect on what's happening on the ground from a community board level? Like, what's made your...
Well, that's always
where's
been
your
the
decision
aim.
making on that? Yeah, but what's your decision making on going for council and the community board? Yeah.
So there's only two of us running for council in Burwood.
Right.
So myself and Kelly Barber.
Yes.
He's the incumbent.
Yes.
And so People's Choice, who is a grouping of people who are left-leaning politicians, didn't have anyone running there. So my aim was always to go onto community board, because the Methodist Mission board accepted that it was an extension of my current role. You know, because we're always advocating for the community on the east, which they had the foresight to hire us to do this particular role. So it was kind of like a natural progression. A friend of mine has been nagging me for 3 elections to put my name forward to run. And I said, well, I've actually got capacity this year because I come off the Canterbury Basketball Board, which is why I said yes to this year. And then the next thing, I said, yes, I'll run for community board. And then he goes, well, we haven't got anyone running for council. Would you put your name forward? I said, why would I want to do that? And he goes, oh, we haven't got anyone running, and you're highly likely not to get in your first year of running, but it's good visibility for you should you want to become a councillor, you know, down the track. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So now there's the two of us running,
Yes.
and I feel like if I'm meant to be in that role, the universe will open that door.
Not to say that you aren't working your butt off, because I have seen your socials where you are, on the street knocking on doors. So yeah, even though the universe will provide, but you are working hard for it. So I just think that's worth mentioning.
Oh, thanks. But we've been door knocking for the last 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks every weekend.
Yeah.
Hail, which we've been caught in before, rain.
It's just as the weather's changing, from winter through to spring, that we're getting this such random weather. So yeah, it's persistence right there.
But it's and I guess when you've been prepared, I feel like I've been prepared for a role, because I used to door knock in the earthquake space, so it was just going in and checking on people. One thing I'm really struggling with is actually promoting myself, because it doesn't come naturally. So my private socials is private, but now I've had to open myself up, and for the most part everyone's been really good. So and some of the other things that I was told would happen hasn't actually happened. So I've been told, well, Burwood board doesn't go out and vote, so it'd be good for you to encourage people to vote. And up until yesterday, Burwood have been the second highest return of votes at the moment.
Wow.
And then don't worry, Fee, you won't get in on your first go. And I feel like almost every door that I've knocked on, they go, oh, Fionna Chapman, yes, I've already voted for you.
Oh, wow.
So wow. It's because in my head I'm not going to get
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh,
can I?
Yeah. Sounds like I've got more than 10 votes. So I guess it's got to be mentally prepared.
Yes.
In case that happens.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Have there been any political mentors that you've come across that have made a difference? You mentioned a friend has been chipping away at you for the last 3 terms.
Yeah.
But is that person a political figure, or have there been other political figures that have just given you that extra bit of
encouragement?
Yeah, of a nudge.
Absolutely. So Paul McMahon is the chair of the Waitai Linwood Burwood ward, coastal. So he's always been encouraging, because he really believes in diversity around that table. He's been an amazing mentor, and he's such a political geek. So there's him, and of course there's been Gary Moore, who's been, that's how we met in terms of housing, trying to get our Pacific families into housing. Yes. So that project back in 2016 has been really pivotal. Yeah. But that morphed into, our friendship sort of really blossoming, and he's, the Smash Palace, the Tuesday
Club. Yes.
Tuesday Club was a real eye-opener for me, because it showed that there's this underbelly of politicians or people who actually really care about people making the decisions or representation around those tables. And that was kind of my first introduction to politics. It's like, oh, where did these people come from? There's no brown people here, but passionate people. So that's been really nice. And recently Poto Williams, being a Pacific woman, has offered her services too. I can just pick up the phone and go, oh, what do I do here?
Yes, I heard she left our city for the the warmer shores of Titahi Bay.
Yeah. But she's hugely influential. And
Yes,
again,
yes, she would be.
you know, that universe marrying up.
Yeah.
You know, Poto used to be the general manager of Waipuna, St John of God.
Wow.
And she left just before I got there, but her presence and her decision making was still lingering there, and people often talked about her. So when she became the East MP,
Yes, for
You know,
Labour. Yes, yes.
so we actually worked together on a few things when I was into the Methodist mission, which has continued on now with Reuben Davidson, who is now the MP on the East. So, you know, we do lots of work together, and, you know, there's so many, I don't want to call them coincidences or serendipitous moments, and, you know.
Well, I think when you've got those types of people, you know, the chair of a ward, a former mayor of Christchurch, a former, well, I'm pretty sure Poto, did she have, maybe she was in cabinet, I don't know, but she was,
had the police portfolio.
yeah, so a former
community
minister, MP, to have those types of people that you've just come across through your life, you know, to lead you into the confidence and the trusting in yourself to run in a local body elections, you know, far out was very lucky, eh?
It's just not those people just in
Yeah,
those,
not just those
in
guys.
those spaces. It's the community manager, you know, who was influential. You know, some of my colleagues who, you know, Fee, well, let's go for a walk, and it's okay, you'll be fine. It's going to be flat, and they're flat in a natural trek or anything like this. Or, you know, I've always been pushed out of my comfort zone by people who are just amazing.
Have you always been left leaning, or was that something that's developed over time?
I didn't know what left leaning meant. It was even though I say I've not really been into politics, I watch and sort of follow, and I'm like, what was he saying? I've kind of gone where my values lie, which is, you know, I don't know why I didn't find the Methodist mission earlier. I feel like, you know, I've been, you know, learning and leaning and learning, and, you know, I don't take on roles without having a connection to something. So, like, you know, I've been on a committee of the only women's basketball club in Christchurch for the last 28 years. And they opened up a position in governance on the Canterbury Basketball Board. And from the Canterbury Basketball Board, moving on to, you know, advisor for the New Zealand Basketball Board. So, you know, I've never aspired to be in those positions. They're just opportunities that have arisen. And then I remember when you asked me to be chair of the Moana Community Trust, I'm like, I don't want to be chair, I can't do that. But it's having those people in your corner, elevating you and trusting you and believing that you can make a difference in those spaces. Then it's like, well, if they can do it, then I have to do it. I'm not just representing myself, I'm representing the people that believe that I should be in this space and that can do it. Yeah.
And when you're talking about values, do you feel like a lot of those values are coming from your Samoan Pacific upbringing that have sort of swung you towards People's Choice, and you've found a home at People's Choice where you feel comfortable, that you don't have to be someone
Pretend,
else? Yeah, you don't have to. I feel like a lot of ordinary Kiwis and people living in Aotearoa, we just look at a lot of politicians and we just think they might be two-faced. You know, they might say one thing here and then behind closed doors they're doing something else. I feel like that's a real perception, but have you found that because, well, one, you're in local body politics, not national body politics where you're in front of the camera constantly or whatever, but at that level of local body politics and just with the People's Choice local political party, have you found a home? Like, have you found that those specific values in People's Choice have just made sense?
Well, they're about community and future generations. So, you know, what's there not to love about aligning yourself with people who value community and all voices and diversity and our future generations, because we're here to make decisions for our future generations, which is why it's really important to not sell off our publicly owned assets. And so, yeah, those values sit nicely with me. And the other thing is, you know, I've watched, you know, Sarah Templeton get hammered, or all our female politicians, Jacinda Ardern, get hammered by the community and society. I couldn't handle doing or putting myself forward in a space where, you know, people have these big polarizing views. I felt safe with people's choice as a Pacific woman. So, and I don't think I would have run by myself, because I saw how expensive a campaign was to run, and I'm like, no, I don't have that spare money lying around to do that. So,
did you consider any other local political groups or
No.
alignments? Yeah, okay.
no,
Okay.
I wouldn't run. I wouldn't have run if I had to do it on my own.
Yeah, but like you didn't, for argument's sake, you didn't consider Independent Citizens, which is that, I guess, right-leaning
Yeah,
local political group.
no, just purely based on their populist views. You know, there was a huge focus on speed humps and cycle lanes, and it just, those things didn't align with me, because I believe there should be cycle lanes, but, you know, within reason.
Yeah.
You know, they've got to connect to things, so that, you know, there's always more context behind the reasons why.
Yeah, I have come across that recently, thinking about you know, those infrastructure projects that we're talking about here in Ōtautahi, and just thinking there's more to the story that's getting put out by local media outlets than probably face value, you know. And I'm just thinking, oh, you know, I wouldn't consider myself completely ignorant, but it's just realizing that there's got to be more to the story. There's got to be more to the story about why these decisions are being made, rather than, yeah, like you said, us just looking at cycle lanes and speed bumps and thinking, man, these are a pain in the butt. Because I do think that. You know, I drive every day.
I do too.
And sometimes I cycle from time to time, but, you know, for the most part I'm driving to get to mahi, and I'm thinking, man, these are such an annoyance. But there's got to be more to the story. And I guess I'm very interested in yourself and the other lady that you're campaigning with.
Mihi Rose.
Yes, Mihi Rose. And why you guys are choosing now, when so many, you know, when you're seeing those really hurtful, really poisonous things coming in on articles on Facebook, and you can just read the comments, and you know it's a populist view because people are liking it, and it's like the number one liked comment on that article or whatever here in our local news. And I just think, oh man, I hope Fee's all right.
Yeah, because I commented on one, and then the thread that just came after that, my kids are like, delete it, Mum. Delete it. I was like, oh, why? They go,
because I know another lady who's running for Christchurch Central, and she's running as an independent. And I thought it must be a tough road, because like you said, it is a tougher road when you're having to do it by yourself. And I do think maybe our Pacific people feel a bit scared, you know, about taking that leap to either align or how do I do it independently if it's going to cost me 8, 10, 15,
it's
20
a lot of
grand
money.
to run a campaign to become a councillor. And then I actually thought about this just before, the imposter syndrome. You know, you starting to feel that, and then say you win to become a councillor, and it just makes me feel excited just saying that, putting that into words. But say you become a councillor, how do you feel like along your journey reaching these different community levels, senior practitioner, chair of Canterbury Basketball, advisor to New Zealand Basketball, have you felt that imposter syndrome creeping in? And then if you become a councillor, do you feel like that might creep in on that, and how will you tackle that? Because I feel like a lot of our Pacific people that hit those levels, they start feeling that imposter syndrome.
I've got in my head, if I'm there, I'm meant to be there. And I'm there representing those people that elevated me to be there. And so that's not imposter syndrome, I guess.
I like it.
At first it would have been. But I think I've all those things that I've done in my career path, or the trainings that I've gone to, the symposiums I've spoken to, everyone's really encouraging. People are awesome at elevating other people. So I know if I'm there, then that's, you often hear of people saying, oh, my village got me there. It's so true. And there's that I'm there because my people wanted me there. I'm there because the community wanted me there.
Do you feel like, I also hear this from our Pacific people, is it's sort of like those aunties at well, not at a Siva Samoa, but say Polyfest or Sortanga. I remember this personally when I was at university. And up at Sortanga, the aunties in the crowd would be giving us stick, atamai, and halu, and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, man, you get up here and do it. Yeah, I know I suck, but do you feel like...
Why did you think that, though? Because those are words of encouragement.
I was, I grew up very Balingi, so I did suck, but... I did suck. I got no rhythm, but...
You and me both.
I think, there's words of encouragement, but sometimes... maybe our young people can take it the other way.
Yeah.
And especially, we are our harshest critics.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And I feel like, have you come across that yet? You've been campaigning for 6 weeks. Have you felt like there's been criticism from within the community, any of that sort of tall poppy syndrome? You felt like, they're a little bit jealous or something like that?
No, not once.
That's amazing.
Not once.
Yeah. That's good.
I think it's what you touched on before, being that populist view, the polarising thoughts that's out there, that actually people are sick of that stuff, that they're going out to vote really fast in our ward, but also they want something different. And so that could go in my favour. I don't know.
Well, it did interest me when you first let us know, some of us at least, that you were going to run for ward and council with the People's Choice, and I think I remember asking you why People's Choice, because I feel like even I watched that was all those chief executives recently were at a big conference. I think it was a couple of days ago, and they
local body ones.
No. It was nationwide, so it was like the CE of main freight, foodstuffs. They were all at this massive conference up north somewhere, and a lot of those national body government politicians were there, both from left, right, Labour, National, and all the others. They were at that conference too. Now, New Zealand Herald interviewed some of those CEs or CEOs, and at least from what I can remember, some of them were just saying, get the politics out of it. Let's just do what's right for the country, or do what's right in terms of infrastructure, do what's right in terms of these long-term projects. I know you've campaigned with People's Choice for really good reasons, but do you think you can walk across the table, or reach across the table and work together with those opposing views, probably from, say, independent citizens and other right-leaning councillors, and even on your local community board? Do you feel like you're going to be able to do that? That a lot of Kiwis and Cantabrians at the moment feel like, just take the left and right out of it. What's best for our city? you know, highway or train out to Rolleston, a train out to Rangiora, you know, let's just take the people's choice and the independent citizens out of it. Do you feel like that? You're going to be able to bridge those gaps, even though you are people's choice?
I think people's choice represents a fair rhetoric, I guess. My whole life I've had to work with people with different views, so I think having me around the table will be able to bridge kind of some of that stuff. Aaron Kewen, who's been elected unopposed, was somebody I'd gone to school with. And when I was referring to the thread before, it was one of his threads that he had posted his recommendations across Christchurch, who he wanted to vote for.
Right.
And I put something in there like, Aaron, I thought we were friends over politics.
Oh, did he list Kelly Barber?
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't just that. They were all the right-leaning
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
candidates. And then, you know, his support crew all just jumped on. And they're going, oh, boo-hoo, you were just getting all upset because he didn't put you in there or something along those lines. But I can work with anyone.
Well, I think you're probably saying there that you can work with people that want to work with you.
Yeah. But also, I met Kelly Barber yesterday. Did I tell you that?
No.
We were lobbying for the bus to go back through Hampshire Street in Aranui.
Yes, I've heard this.
And it was my first time meeting Kelly Barber yesterday. And it was really nice to actually sit down and talk to him as a human. And we were just talking family stuff. And, you know, it was good. It was civil. You know, people are always going to have an opinion on your types of politics. So it's finding a way and always questioning yourself, who is it benefiting? You know, any of the decisions that you make around the table, is it just benefiting your cronies, or is it benefiting the whole of the community? And is it going to be for our future generations? So, I mean, if you keep yourself in check on the decisions that you make, and it's not going to be always that easy when you're hearing all these different views, but, you know, I think that's my strength, is being able to take in all sides.
What a great place to leave it, actually. Well, thank you very much, Fyfe Lava, Fee, for sharing with us your story from first home all the way through to transitioning from private sector to not-for-profit sector, and now this really exciting new journey into local body politics. We wish you all the best with your campaign and with the upcoming elections, and hopefully we'll see Councillor Moana or Fionna Siose-Chapman. Fyfe Lava.
Oh, thanks, Danté. I didn't even need my notes. That was awesome, thanks.
No, Fyfe Lava.